Hello everybody, my name is Smarty, short for Smarty Reads, and welcome back. Today I'm going to read chapter 10 of Step 4th Mallory. It's called Conference Time. Before we begin, make sure you like this video, subscribe and turn on your post notifications so you know when I upload a new video. Also, share this video with your friends and family so they can watch me read as well. But a special announcement before we begin, I would like to give a very special shout out to Mahakwat. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correct. If I'm not, I am very sorry. But yeah, other than that, let's begin. Conference time. I have soccer practice, I hear Joey say. I have a violin lesson, Pamela says. Even though I don't play soccer or the violin right now, I'd like to be playing either one of those things. What I don't want to be doing is staying for an after-school conference with my teacher. I can only imagine what Mr. Knight is going to say, or even worse, what he's going to do. Do you think Mr. Knight wants to talk to you about the email thing, Marianne asks me. And then at the top, there's Busted, Mallory McDonald, 32605. I swallow hard. I wish the email thing was all he wanted to talk to me about, but I know it's more. I also know I can't tell Marianne what it is. If she knew I switched our names around, she'd be even madder at me than Mr. Knight is going to be. I don't want to keep Mr. Knight waiting, I tell Marianne. You can go ahead and go home. I'll see you later. Marianne leaves and so does everyone else. I walk up to Mr. Knight's desk. I wait for him to say, Mallory, what you did was wrong and you deserve to be scrubbing the floors and straightening the supply closet and scraping the gum off the bottom of desks. But that's not what he says. Mallory, have a seat, Mr. Knight says. After I'm seated, he clears his throat and begins. Transcript of student-teacher conference between Mallory, Louise McDonald, and Mr. Knight. Mr. Knight, serious look on his face. Mallory, during lunch, someone changed my partner chart for the Washington, D.C. project. And then to the right, there is Mr. Knight. MLM, quiet, not sure what to say. Mr. Knight, really? Serious look on his face. Mallory, do you know who changed my chart? MLM, really quiet, not sure what to say. Mr. Knight, crossing arms across chest. Mallory, during lunch, did you change my partner chart for the Washington, D.C. project? MLM, speaking softly. It's a little bit hard to remember everything I did during lunch because lunch was a long time ago. Mr. Knight speaking loudly. Mallory, lunch was only 3 hours ago. I don't think you should have any trouble remembering what you did. MLM, quiet, looking down at new shoes, which she now thinks might be bad luck shoes. Mr. Knight, talking in an impatient grown-up voice. Mallory, I want the truth and I want it right this minute. MLM, wishing she could turn herself into a shoe. Yes, I do remember doing that during lunch. Mr. Knight, arms still crossed. Mallory, why would you do something like that? MLM, it's hard to explain. Mr. Knight, shaking his head like no explanation will be satisfactory. Why don't you try to explain it to me? Because, to be perfectly honest with you, I am having a very difficult time understanding why you would do something like this. MLM scratches forehead, feeling hot and itchy all over. Tries to talk, but no sound comes out. Mr. Knight, okay, Mallory, if you don't want to talk, I will. I am very disappointed in you. I've tried to be understanding, but frankly, I don't understand your behavior. Since school started, you've broken lots of my rules, and today you've broke even more. When you sent me the email about the way I dress, you broke rule number 6, which is to treat others how you would like to be treated. I might be wrong, but I don't think you would like it if someone told you how to dress. When you changed around the names on my partner's chart, you broke rule number 7, which very clearly says do not touch other people's property without permission. By doing so, you broke rule number 8, which is to respect your classmates and teacher. I don't think you were respecting anyone when you took took it upon yourself to change what I had done. Mallory, what do you have to say for yourself? MLM, having a hard time answering because she feels like she's about to cry. Mr. Knight, speaking in an I mean business voice. Young lady, I'd like an answer right this instant. MLM, wiping away a tear. It's kind of a long explanation. I don't actually know where to start. Mr. Knight, why don't you start at the beginning and tell me everything? MLM takes a tissue from the box on teacher's desk and blowing nose. Well, first of all, I never meant to break any rules. I just kind of broke them before I had a chance not to. Mr. Knight not looking convinced. MLM continuing. Mr. Knight, I was really excited to start 4th grade. I thought it was going to be the best year ever. I couldn't wait for it to start, but once it started, what I thought was going to be the best year ever turned out to be the worst year ever. First, I started breaking rules, and that made you mad. I tried to do things that made you unmad, like writing the poem about you and giving you some fashion advice, but that made you madder. MLM, stopping because not sure how to explain the next part of Mr. Knight. Mr. Knight, surprisingly understanding look on his face. Go on. MLM, deep breath. The thing is, I started liking Carlos, and since he's the first boy I've ever liked, and since Marianne is my lifelong best friend, I tried to tell her. But before I could tell her that I like Carlos, she told me she liked Carlos, so I couldn't tell her anything, and now Carlos likes Marianne and not me. And I hadn't planned to tell you I like Carlos, but the reason I'm telling you is because me liking Carlos is why I broke rule number 7. I thought if he was my partner on the Washington project and not Marianne's, he might decide to like me and not Marianne. Mr. Knight, looking like doesn't completely understand. MLM, continuing. I didn't mean to break rule number 7. I actually came back to the classroom during lunch to tell you that I was sorry for sending you the email, but when I got there, you weren't there, but the partner list for the Washington project was. And when I saw it on your desk and saw that Marianne and Carlos were partners, it was like my hand just picked up the pencil and changed your partner chart before my brain had a chance not to tell it not to. And I didn't even think about rule number 8, but somehow I guess I broke that too. Mr. Knight, finished. MLM, shaking head. Almost. I'd just like to say that I know what I did wrong and I wish I hadn't done it. Any of it. I wish I hadn't broken any of your rules. I didn't mean to and I'm very, very, very sorry. Pausing. Except now you see why 4th grade isn't working out so well for me so far. Mr. Knight, half smiling. Mallory, that was quite an explanation as to why you broke the rules. I'm glad you shared all of that with me. Now there are some things I'd like to share with you. First, rules in general. My classroom rules are meant to be followed. Even if you do not mean to break them, you will still be held responsible for your behavior. Do you understand? MLM, nodding. Mr. Knight. Good. Next, friends. Marianne. You know, Mallory, you can't control what your friends do. Sometimes they do things you might not want them to. The truth is, people change, and as they do, friendships change. You have a choice. You can choose not to be friends with Marianne anymore, or you can try to adapt to the changes that have taken place in both of your lives. I'm sure that just because Marianne likes Carlos doesn't mean that she likes you any less. I hope you'll always be great friends. If you can adapt to changes that have taken place in both of your lives, I'm sure that will be the case. Does that make sense? MLM, nodding again. Mr. Knight, excellent. Now let's talk about Carlos. I appreciate that you felt you could talk to me about the first boy you've ever liked, even if you did talk to me about in conjunction with breaking a class rule. We'll talk about rules in a minute, but first I'd like to talk to you about liking someone when you're not sure if they like you back. I'm no expert in this field, but I can tell you after having taught for 20 years is to be patient. I've seen relationships come and go. Why don't you try to be a nice friend to Carlos? He just moved here from another country. He could use some friends. I wouldn't be surprised if things change as we go through the year. MLM, nodding yes. like she would be happy if that happened. Mr. Knight, now back to the rules. I understand you to explain, follow all of them. No expectations. Is that clear? MLM, nodding again. Like, that is very clear. Mr. Knight, smiling. Excellent. Mallory, fourth grade has just begun. There is lots of time for you to turn things around. I'm sure if you work at it, fourth grade will turn out to be the best year ever. You want to give it a shot? Marianne, MLM nodding one more time. Mr. Knight, good. Then we're finished. MLM, looking unsure about what's left. Almost? Mr. Knight, almost. Smile disappears. Gives MLM a pink slip of paper. This is a conduct referral. I've written out a description of what you've done today. You need to take this home and get it signed by your parents. Serious look on face. When they see it, I'm sure they'll want you to explain what happened. MLM looks at paper in hands and feels tears starting again. Mr. Knight, looking sympathetic. Mallory, I'm sure tomorrow will be a better day. End transcript. Mary Louise McDonald walks home alone with backpack on her back, conduct referral in one hand, and fresh tissue in the other. That's the end of that chapter. I'll see you next time when I read Making Wishes. Bye, everyone.